Hello everybody. As we navigate these trying times, folks, I offer you a brief moment of respite to walk with me in this journey of creating a video game. It's a high fantasy emergent gameplay RPG inspired by games like Kenshi, Dwarf Fortress, and a roguelike my older brother showed me when I was 12 years old called Ivan. It's got goblins and humans and Canadian geese, but eventually it will be host to a whole world of dwarves, elves, ogres, and maybe one day, God willing, Dragon's Crown style comically large sorceress breasts. Today we're exploring stats, RPG mechanics, and as always, new and novel ways to torture the player. I'm Code for Broke, the official diplomat of Canada, saying we're sorry about everything. And please, for the love of God, make it stop. I added this little tedious mechanic last time that has the player remove arrows by hand when they've punctured a body part. I'm a fan of it. It's fun. And I did a little housekeeping to fix it up. The arrows now give a little resistance when you pull on them. They actually slide out at the angle they're inserted instead of sideways, because I'd briefly forgotten about trigonometry at the time that I wrote the code. And the tip is also masked, so it actually looks like it's sliding out of the character display. And finally, it now inflicts bleeding on the limb it was removed from. Now, there's still quite a bit more to do here. A physical wound needs to appear on the character when the arrow is removed. There needs to be some squirts of blood to make bleeding more apparent. And I started working on a similar mini-game, so to speak, for bandaging wounds that I couldn't quite get finished in time to show off for this video. But that gets you thinking, what exactly does bleeding mean? Well, in real life it means we may have jumped the gun painting unicorns on the spare bedroom's walls, but in video games it can be a damage over time, damage that scales in max health, or any other sort of bullshit. But in a game like this, with limb-specific damage, it serves a very particular purpose. See, this game features the damaging and removal of a character's limbs, cutting off arms and legs without killing the character outright. And because it's not a fully 3D first-person experience, some amount of mathematical randomness is involved in determining which limb receives damage. And that's the problem. If a character only dies when the head or the torso is destroyed, and each limb has its own health bar, the number of hits a character takes before dying varies wildly, which makes the experience chaotic, and in the worst case you go from one clicking a character with a lucky crit to the head, to another character taking strike after strike and still standing, as if an homage to Monty Python. And that's why we need blood as a separate metric of health, to better emulate reality. So, in honor of Diablo, I made this glass sphere and accompanying red orb, rendered them into 2D sprites, and added them to the UI. It's still missing a little stone gargoyle or something of that nature to hold it, but it will do for now. I wanted to put a shader on it as well to make it move a little bit, but apparently I'll have to update Unity to a new version before doing that stops breaking masking in the UI. Next, I introduced blood as a stat in the code and tied it to the UI. When any limb takes damage, so too does the blood to some extent, by different amounts depending on the damage type, which drains the fill of the sphere. To articulate blood loss to the player, I revised the blood decals and sorted them by intensity, so we can now tie the new blood proportionally to the physical decoration being placed. I also added this hover effect to display the exact numbers. When a character's blood reaches 0, they'll go unconscious, and if continuing to bleed because they're not bandaged or cauterized, they'll eventually die when the blood amount gets to negative. The blood that used to pool under every character when they die is now related to the blood stat directly as well, occurring if a stopped character is profusely bleeding and stopping when they've been leaked dry. When you get down to it, this game and life is really just a struggle involving bloods and crypts. All of this will take some time to refine and balance, of course, and there's much more to tackle aesthetically, but we're off to a good start. But at this point you might be wondering if this life is even worth saving. If everyone is exactly the same, we can probably just give their stuff to the next guy and move on like nothing happened. What's missing is the experience, and, well, the experience points. And experience, folks, like rap music, is all about the bars. So I started by modeling this glass bar, and a rectangle to fill it. This time I made it white so it could be colored differently in-game. I then modeled this piece of wood and rendered them all into 2D sprites. Now, the first RPGs I played as a kid always had experience as an arbitrary value that accumulated and granted the character a new level, giving them choices on what stats or skills to improve. And this to me feels like a violation of what experience points probably came from, in that they're meant to represent the character's experience doing something, and therefore how good they are at it. Developing skills through practice is one of the most incredible things about being alive, aside from large breasts, and so RPGs should operate the same way, in my opinion. So I created another UI tab, this time with a star since I felt it symbolizes experience, and I had it populate a menu with an experience bar for each skill. This isn't a complete list, just the things I could jot down off of the top of my head at the time. Attacking an enemy with a weapon will grant experience with that type, but I wanted to take things a bit further because there are things about stats in games that still bother me. For instance, if you spent your life swinging a sword, so much so that you'd become a sword master, I would think if picking up a larger sword or a differently shaped sword, there would be some amount of carryover. So using weapons in this game grants smaller experience bonuses in related skills, but only if the related skill is lower than the skill being used, and after a certain threshold to emulate true mastery, cannot be trained by another weapon skill. And then you've got stats, which are different from skills. Stats are something that exist in real life as well. It's what women use to decide they're not going to sleep with me. And in this game, they belong to individual limbs, with intelligence being unique to the head, strength belonging to and serving a different function for each limb, and fortitude working in a similar way. Stats will therefore be temporarily reduced when the associated limb is damaged, meaning a blow to the head might have you drooling from the mouth, while a damaged leg will reduce your character's ability to run and their walk speed. And of course, this worsens the impact of completely losing a limb, since recovering it through magic or other means might not return it to the same state it was in when you lost it. And having a limb replaced with another limb made of an inorganic material will mean the stats can't be increased through training, since rocks are obviously not going to respond well to a push-pull split. Increasing stats will be more complex than simply using them. I want them to more closely emulate reality, but we'll talk about how that works more in a future video. Another thing that rubs me the wrong way about stats is requirements to use a weapon or equipment. Why would an article of clothing require 60 intelligence to wear, unless you were a complete f***ing moron and you couldn't even put it on? Similarly, why do you have to be stronger to hold a sword just because it's a higher level? This all made me think, hey, actually everything does have a stat requirement. It's just the reason for it that has to make more sense. So, since items are made from materials, we'll just use the volume of that weapon's shape and the density of the material to determine its strength requirement, and it will use a few different thresholds. An extremely low value will be required to simply hold something that's heavy, but a higher threshold will be required to swing it with the proper animations and speed. Now, several games have done this before, but I do have some fun ideas to explore later for approaching other stat requirements, like an extremely low intelligence character equipping a weapon and having a chance of just holding it the wrong way. So the player's punishment for being dumb is having to unequip and equip an item a bunch of times to put it on the right way, while an NPC without the guidance of a human being would simply assume that they're doing it correctly. I could go on and on about ideas like this for stats, but we've hit actual implementation bedrock for now, and I don't want to get ahead of myself by revealing and promising too much, so I'll have to save some of that rambling for a future video. Folks, if you want to support the project, it is on Patreon, but if you're concerned about Mark Carney getting a piece, you can still support the game by liking, commenting, and mailing vials of your own blood to my P.O. box. Thank you genuinely to all of my beautiful Patreon subscribers. Sometimes I do feel like I'm draining away like Hercules in the river Styx, but like Disney's Hercules, I've been made immortal by the power of your love. And our artist has finally returned from administrative leave, so it's time to kick things back up. And at long last, I'll be creating the Steam page and revealing the name of the game at the same time, so stay tuned for that. Alright. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for watching. See you later.
Maybe if you looked in this direction, I'll pick my heart up off the floor and put it in my